Hi, Paul from Mr. English again, one of the directors here. Okay, and we're going to do another pronunciation video to help you. Rule 7 and 8 today. If you're happy with the videos, then subscribe and like. Now, rule 7 is exaggerate certain sounds. Words, for instance, make them bigger. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, if you've ever known anyone who's done any acting, maybe you've done it as well if you've been fortunate enough. In the theatre, people know about exaggeration. Now, like I mentioned, if you've ever been on stage, you have to make certain facial expressions to show the emotion. Or maybe you're reacting to someone else's line. Now, if you're not really showing any emotion, it's not going to really be that popular with audience. Okay, and exactly the same in relation to learning another language. Now, make sure that you do it bigger. Express yourself a little bit more. Exaggerate things. So it starts to become normal to the audience. Now, bigger pronunciation is exactly the same way. Now, depending on what your native language is and which dialect of English you're studying, you'll find certain sounds to be difficult. Maybe, depending on the accent as well, some students may find certain accents a little more difficult to express to other people. Maybe with the American accent, you found the R sound a little more difficult as well. So, how do you master a tricky sound like this? Now, exaggerate, exaggerate, and exaggerate. Okay, it's the basic word of this actual rule. Now, exaggerate until you're sure it's so over the top, it's ridiculously over the top, that people may look at you a little bit strange or a little bit funny, for instance, as you're pronouncing certain words. Now, if you're exaggerating the words to the point that you feel like an idiot, then you're probably on the right path. Now, if you're super over the top in your pronunciation, you become more and more aware of the shape of your mouth and placement of your tongue when you make that sound. For example, because I'm learning Spanish and because I'm okay at Spanish, there are certain words that you need to actually pronounce differently to the English pronunciation. Now, here are some examples for you to have a look at.
Acumen. Acumen. Acumen.
Alleviate. Alleviate. Alleviate.
Endeavor. Endeavor. Endeavor.
Now, believe it or not, exaggerating these sounds will likely make it easier for native speakers to understand you. This will go for every language, basically. Okay, just understanding how you're actually pronouncing the words. Exaggerate to the point that you actually feel a little bit of an idiot, but then you can actually make it a little more subtle because you can pronounce the words perfectly. You may think you sound corny or cheesy because you aren't used to making these sounds or saying these words, but for a native speaker, you'll sound way more authentic than a foreigner who is shy or timid about saying certain words. You're trying to actually allow a native speaker to be able to understand you, to be able to have a conversation. So you may as well do the difficult work first in regards to trying to pronounce the words and exaggerating the words first to be able to then have a conversation a lot quicker and a lot easier. So what's the goal? Now, eventually, you'll be so used to the shape that your mouth is making, you won't be conscious of exaggerating that, and you won't be thinking of English pronunciation rules as you speak. And that's when you know you're on the path to fluency. So rule 8 then, which we're going to be doing, is writing out difficult words by their sounds. Now, are you having any problems with certain words, for instance? We'll try writing them out. Now, not just the word, try to write it out phonetically, based on the sounds. instead of the spellings. Okay, it's quite easy to just write the word in regards to translating it, but if you're not pronouncing the word correctly, then what's the point? So let's say you're struggling with the word, let's say pizza. Write it out phonetically in relation to how you pronounce the word in your own native language. Okay, we could go through a whole list of different words in relation to this, but it's the phonics in regards to how you're going to be pronouncing the words. So try it with a number of different words. Okay, for example, in Spanish, I'm going to actually just say a lady's name, Julia, for instance. Now, the J is pronounced like Jota or Ju, for instance, like Javier. Now, in English, we'll spell this as a J first. Okay, but in Spanish, you'll pronounce that with like a ha sound. So when you're actually writing a certain word in English, then actually write it based on how you would actually say it in your native language. Then you can actually try it in your own tongue, in the English pronunciation, and it'll become more natural to you as well. Now, when you look at the phonics, you can see that the double Z is pronounced like a tst, for example, with pizza. It's not like pizza, for instance, but pizza. So that is one of the actual words that you could try, as well as many other different words. Now, another thing you could try in relation to this is try making some flashcards. Write the word on one side, then spell it out phonetically on the other side. Now, if it helps, you can highlight the letters on each side that you're testing yourself on. Okay, this can be especially useful for visual learners. So if that's the type of learning strategy that you use, this is definitely going to be for you. And writing out things phonetically can be difficult. Now, especially if it's your second language. Okay, so for the pronunciation, there are going to be many different places you can actually find this too. But make sure that you actually get the phonetic alphabet. Now, when you're doing this, type in a word or sentence you need help with, and then translate it and then listen to the pronunciation. Write it down based on how you pronounce the word in your own language. And also, remember the accent. Do you want to pronounce certain words a little bit differently? Now, for example, in British English, it's oregano. But in American English, they say oregano. So there's two different pronunciations to exactly the same word. So a couple more rules for today, okay, in relation to rules 7 and 8. Remember, subscribe and like our channel. We'll put in regular content on here. So remember to learn English with Mr. English. Okay, and I'm Paul and Mr. English. Take care and goodbye.